we're reviewing in honors English, 11 honors English, the section that we were quizzed on Friday. This basically is the section where the monster reveals himself. Yeah.
I don't have that sheet.
Yeah, I got one for you. You probably need to, you need a quiz. You need to take a quiz on something. We'll have to talk about that. All right, so this would be question 15. So describe the circumstances in which the creature introduced himself to the old man. That's kind of where we left off. Anybody can remember that? Lillian?
Sophie, Agatha, and Felix were all out working, not really near the cottage, and the monster knocked on the door like he was a passing traveler, and came in and talked to the blind man.
Yeah, remember he's blind, so how did he react to Frankenstein?
Like he was normal.
Because he couldn't see him. Now, what had he done for the family? They've not done anything for him, because they don't even know he was there. What has he done for them? Yeah.
He'd like go out and get like firewood, just like stuff like that. He felt that he was stealing food from them. Yeah.
Okay, so he was helping them out. Now, he introduces himself, everything is going fine, until what happened?
Felix walks in. Sophia, Agatha, Felix.
Right, they walk in, of course, what is their reaction?
He starts beating him.
Right, his appearance scares them to death, and they beat him. And what is the reaction? What does the creature do at that moment? What does he do as a result of it?
He runs away.
Right. So he leaves them, and it's just more of the same. The reaction they have to him is because of his looks. All right, so where does he go? This is kind of chapter 16. You don't have those questions. I think I need to get those to you, but we'll just talk about it.
Geneva.
He goes, who's he looking for?
The creators.
All right, he's looking for Frankenstein. Why does he kill William?
He learns that he's related to the creator, Frankenstein.
Yeah, but it's still not, it's not an intentional thing. He didn't do it yet. He does do that later in the book. He kills family members just out of revenge. But what does he, what's the circumstances that led him to kill William? Yes.
Wasn't he trying to kidnap him and try to like make him his own so that he could have someone that doesn't fear him? And then William says that he's related to Frankenstein and he just kills him.
But it's an accident. He doesn't want to be heard. We need to find that. Yeah. At first he's nice to him. This is on page 141 if you want to look at it. At the approach of a beautiful child, if I therefore should seize him and educate him as my companion and friend, I should not be so desolate in this peopled earth. So he says, child, what is the meaning of that? I do not intend to hurt you. The child is afraid of me. So again, he's misunderstood. And when he finds out, he's struggling and he finds out who it is, I mean, he doesn't know, when he finds out it's William, the brother, then he goes ahead and kills him. But earlier, there'd been an encounter with a little girl. So what happens there? You remember the encounter with the girl?
The dude shoots him.
What?
The dude shoots him.
Yeah, but what was
He was
happening?
saving her.
Yeah, he was saving her from drowning. Instead of asking any questions, they shoot at him. And so at this point, he's made efforts to be kind to people, to the Lacey's, the little girl, even William Frankenstein. He's been kind to these people, but now he's got to completely change his opinion. So after he kills them, what does he do next? It's the reason Justine is arrested for the crime. Yeah.
He takes this little locket thing out of his pocket and places it in Justine's like dress when she's sleeping in the barn.
Right. course, she would be the second victim indirectly of his revenge. So William is the first one. Maybe that order is important. And so what does he ask? Remember, where are they literally in the story when he's telling the story? They're outside, they're outside the town, but they're in the Alps, right? They're in the mountains. And he then brought him to a cave, and he begins to explain this. And so what is he asking to have be done for him? Right, he wants a companion. What does Frankenstein do about that? What does he agree to do? Not at first, but what does he eventually agree to do? Yeah.
As long as Frankenstein, or the monster, decides not to hurt anyone and leave and never come back, then he'll do it.
Right. He will do that for him if they kind of make a deal. But he puts it off. And so, but what arrangements does he make in order to fulfill that dream? Yeah.
Well, he has to go to London with his friend to catch up on new science.
Right.
Henry Clerval.
Right. And eventually, where does he go to create the new creature?
An island.
Yeah, northern, I think Scotland, really north. So he doesn't allow Clerval to go with him. Yes. Yeah. And so as we got to the end, he was beginning to make the monster. And so if we read the 160, that's kind of where we left off. Why don't we turn there? Everybody turn there. We're going to read the 190. We haven't done much of this. I think we'll just read together for a few minutes. So we need to put the book behind us again. Yes.
Before he leaves, doesn't he promise to marry Elizabeth?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
Do you have any questions for the next couple chapters?
Yeah. I ran off a whole bunch of them, but they were the wrong ones. So I'll have to do that I'll give them to you on Monday or Wednesday rather. I think it's also safe for you to write in the book. So we're going to start on the top of page 160. And you need to finish this for Thursday. I don't think we're going to have class Friday. We would be scheduled to have class, but I don't know what that's going to look like. So,
Thursday.
What?
I think on Friday we have the 2 electives.
Wait, Thursday this week?
that's why I don't think we're going to meet.
I'll be in Virginia.
I don't think we're going to meet, but we do have that hour. This Friday is a half day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we probably won't meet, but we could. Yeah. Yeah, hang on just a minute.
All right.
All right, everybody on page 160? 160. Yeah. If you can find one, you can, there may be an extra one over there. Junior, would you read at the top of the page? Now, they were in England, and they're gonna be, page 160, we left Oxford.
We left Oxford with regret and proceeded to Matlock, which was our next place to rest. The country as in the neighborhood of this village resembled to a greater degree the scenery of Switzerland, but everything is on a lower scale, and the green hills form the crown of distant white Alps, which always descend on the tiny mountains of my native country. We visited the wondrous caves and the little cabinets of natural history, where the curiosities are disposed in the same manner as in the collections at Cervix and Chamonix. The latter name made me tremble when pronounced by Henry, and I hastened to quit Matlock, with which that terrible scene was thus associated.
You keep reading or pass it to Jameson, which is on page 160, Jameson, from Derby.
From Derby, still journeying northward, we passed 2 months in Cumberland and West Midland. I could now almost fancy myself among the Swiss mountains. The little patches of snow which yet lingered on the northern sides of the mountains, the lakes, and the dashing of the rocky streams were all familiar and dear sights to me. There also we made some acquaintances who almost contrived to cheat me into happiness. The delight of Clerval was proportionately greater than mine. His mind expanded in the company of men of talent, and he found in his own nature greater capacities and resources than he could have imagined himself to have possessed, while he associated with his inferiors. I could pass my life here, said he to me, and among these mountains I should scarcely regret Switzerland and the Rhine.
Lily, could you read a couple of these?
But he found that a traveler's life is one that includes much fate amidst its enjoyments. His feelings are forever on the stretch, and when he begins to sink into response, he finds himself obliged to quit that on which he rests in pleasure for something new, which again engages his attention, and which also he forsakes for his novelties. He had scarcely visited the various lakes of Cumberland and Westmoreland, and conceived an affection for some of the inhabitants in the period of the appointment which, with the Scotch friend, approached, and we left them to travel on. For my own part, I was not sorry. I had now neglected my promise for some time, and I feared that the effects of the demon's disappointment. He might remain in Switzerland and wreak his vengeance on my relatives. This idea pursued me and tormented me at every moment for which I might otherwise have snatched repose and peace. I waited for my letter with feverish impatience. If they were delayed, I was miserable and overcome by 1,000 fears. And when they arrived, I saw the superscription of Elizabeth and my father. I hardly dared to read and assert my fate. Sometimes I thought that the fiend followed me, and might expedite my remissness by murdering my companion. When these thoughts possessed me, I would not quit Henry for a moment, but following him as his shadow, to protect him from the fancied rage of his destroyer. I felt as if I had committed some great crime, the consciousness of which haunted me. I was guiltless, but I had indeed drawn down a horrible curse upon my head, as mortal as that of crime.
Thank you, Brandon.
I visited Edinburgh with languid eyes and mind, and yet that city might have interested this unfortunate being. Clerval did not like it so well as Oxford, for the antiquity of the latter city was more pleasing. But the beauty and regularity of the new town of Edinburgh, its romantic castle and its environs, the most delightful in the world, Arthur's Seat, St. Bernard's Well, and Hinterland Hills compensated him for the change and filled him with cheerfulness and admiration, but I was impatient to arrive at the termination of my journey.
What's he worried about? You know, he promised to make this monster. He's making the effort to go to England to learn the new techniques and science, but what is he worried about?
Well, the creature's very dangerous, and he's worried about, safety and his ability.
Whose safety?
His family.
Right. I mean, he left him in Switzerland, and that's where he thinks the monster is, and if he should not get this thing done soon enough, then the monster might do what he did to William and to Justine. Yeah. All right, so are we going to decide?
We left Edinburgh in a week, passing through Cooper, St. Andrews, and along the bank of the Tay, to Perth, where a friend expected us. But I was in no mood to laugh and talk with strangers, or enter into their feelings or plans with the good humor expected from a guest. And accordingly, I told Clerval that I wished to make the tour of Scotland alone. Do you, said I, enjoy yourself and let this be our rendezvous. I may be absent a month or two, but do not interfere with my motions. I entreat you, leave me to peace and solitude for a short time, and when I return, I hope it will be with a lighter heart, more congenial to your own temper.
So he's decided to do what? Well, he and Clerval have been traveling together.
Partway.
Right, he doesn't want Clerval to be with him for, he doesn't want Clerval to know what he's doing, so, we go to Alistair. Top of 162.
Oh, okay, I have already page. You want me to read two?
Yeah.
Henry wished to dissuade me, but seeing me bent on his plan, ceased to remonstrate. Entreating me to write often. I'd rather be with you, he said, your solitary residence than with these Scotch people, whom I do not know. Hasten, my dear friend, to return, that I may again feel myself somewhat at home, which I cannot do in your absence. Having departed from my friend, I determined to visit some remote spot of Scotland and finish my work in solitude. I did not doubt but that the monster followed me and would discover himself to me when I should have finished, that he might perceive his companion.
So he doesn't know how or when or where, or, but he knows the monster's keeping an eye on him. All right.
This resolution, I traversed the northern island, fixing on one of the notice of the ordinance as the scene of my labors. It was a place fitted for such a work, being hardly more than a rock, whose high sides were continually deep upon by waves. The soil was barren, scarcely afforded pasture for the feeding of the cows, and open for its inhabitants, which consisted of 5 persons, whose dark and scraggy dwelling gave token of their miserable fare. Vegetables and bread, when they indulged in such luxuries, and even fresh water, was to be procured from the main, which was about 5 miles distant.
All right, Jeffrey.
Is it
On the whole,
middle 167 or one?
bottom of 162 on the whole island.
On the whole island, there were but 3 miserable huts, and one of these were vacant when I arrived. This I hired. It contained but 2 rooms, and these exhibited all the squalidness of the most miserable penury. The thatch had fallen in, the walls were unplastered, and the door was off its hinges. I ordered it to be repaired, bought some furniture, and took possession. An incident which would doubtless have occasioned some surprise, had not all the senses of the cottagers had been benumbed by want and squalid poverty. As it was, I lived ungazed at and unmolested, hardly thanked for the pittance of food and clothes which I gave. So much does suffering blunt even the coarsest sensations of youth.
All right, so it was on the Orkney Islands, they're northern Scotland, it's very remote, there are people that live nearby, but that's where he's gonna do his work, Walker.
In this retreat, I devoted the morning to labor, but in the evening, when the weather permitted, I walked on the stony beach to sea, to listen to the waves as they roared and dashed at my feet. It was a month. Yet ever-changing scene, I thought of Switzerland. It was far different from this desolate and appalling landscape. Its hills are covered with vines, and its cottages are scattered thickly in the plains. Its fair lakes reflected blue and gentle sky, and when troubled by the winds, their tumult is but as the play of a lively infant when compared to the roaring of the giant ocean.
Thank you.
Where are we?
163,
Thus.
in this manner.
In this manner, I distributed my occupations when I first arrived, but as I proceeded in my labor, it became every day more horrible and irksome to me. Sometimes I could not prevail on myself to enter my laboratory for several days, and at other times I toiled day and night in order to complete my work. It was indeed a filthy process in which I was engaged. During my first experiment, a kind of enthusiastic frenzy had blinded me to the horror of my employment. My mind was intently fixed on the consummation of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. But now I went to it in cold blood, and my heart often sickened at the work of my hands.
So what's the difference between his attitude now and his attitude when he made the first creature? Yeah,
Now he hates it and he doesn't want to do it, but before he was really eager to continue it since he had never done it before, so he was
Right, he didn't know what it was gonna turn out to be like. He didn't, it was all new and interesting. Now he knows, and he knows the reason he's doing it too. Sarah?
Thus they should have employed and this damnable occupation, immersed in a solitude where nothing could for an instant call my attention for the actual scene in which I was engaged, my spirit because unequal. I grew restless and nervous. Every moment I feared to meet my persecutor. Sometimes I sat with my eyes fixed on the ground, fearing to raise them, lest they should encounter the object which I so much dreaded to behold. I feared to wander from the side of my fellow creatures, lest when alone he would come to claim his companion. In the meantime I worked on, and my labor was already considered advanced. I looked toward its completion with a tremulous and eager hope, which I dared not trust myself to question, but which was intermixed with obscure foreboding of evil, that made my heart sicken in my bosom.
So would you, read?
Yes. I sat one evening in my laboratory. The sun had set, and the moon was just rising from the sea. I had not
Sufficient.
light for my employment, and I remained idle in pause of consideration of whether I should leave my labor for the night, or hasten its conclusion by an unremitting attention to it. As I sat, a train of reflection occurred to me, which led me to consider the effects of what I was now doing. 3 years before, I was engaging in the same matter, and had created a fiend whose unparalleled barbarity had assaulted my heart and filled it forever with the bitterest remorse. And I was now about to form another being of whose dispositions I was alike ignorant. She might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate in delight. For its own sake, in anger and wretchedness, he had sworn to quite the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts. But she had not, and she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with the compact made before her creation. They might even hate each other. The creature who already lived loathed his own deformity, and might he not conceive a greater abhorrence for it when it came before his eyes in the female form. She also might turn with disgust from him to the superior beauty of man. She might quit him, and he be alone. He be again alone, exasperated by the fresh provocation of being deserted by one of his own species.
Would you keep reading out, sir?
Even if they were to leave Europe, the inhabitants of the deserts in the New World, even if they were to leave Europe, the inhabitants of the deserts of the New World, yet one of the first results of those sympathies for which they demon thirsted would be children, and the race of devils would be propagated upon earth, and might make the very existence of the species of man a condition for periods of total terror. Had I right for my own benefit to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations. I had been moved by sophisms for being of the being I had created. I had been struck senseless by his fiendish threats, but now for the first time the wickedness of my promise burst upon me. I shudder to think that the future ages might curse me as their pest, whose selfishness had not hesitated to buy its own peace with the price, perhaps, of the existence of the whole human race.
All right, so I want you, we don't have the questions in front of you, but you've got space at the top. I want us to write down 3 reasons why the Frankenstein doesn't want to make this monster. What is one of those 3 reasons? Anybody? Yeah.
The monsters could turn on each other.
All right, good. They might hate each other, and they could cause more damage if they. Now they're not together being peaceful. They're separate and Who knows what they're doing? I need another reason. Yeah,
The monsters could potentially like make more of themselves and like continue generations that would like 4 or 5 human generations to come.
right, and this is, it's that thought right there that makes the whole process absurd to me. You know, when you're talking about making a creature, that's absurd, that you could duplicate the intricacies of the human body. Of course, you're using human body parts, but how to tie them together and make them work, that's bizarre. But to be able to create so that they can have children, that to me, it's kind of almost like, okay, I've had it. You know, it's like it is so ridiculous. If you don't appreciate the intricacies and complexities of the human body, if you just kind of take it at face value, which you have to do to enjoy the story, yeah, he makes another person, but to me that's absurd. The idea that they could have children, the complexities of that. But there is a third reason. Maybe it's implied in the other two, but that she might be worse than the first one. The first one's killed 2 of his people, and this one might be more evil. So he's thinking, am I could live with myself creating a third or a second evil creature? Tucker. You next?
Okay. I trembled and my heart failed within me. When, on looking up, I saw what a light had come in, the daemon at the casement. The ghastly grin wrinkled his lips as he gazed on me, where I sat fulfilling the task which he had allotted to me. Yes, he had followed me in my travels. He had loitered in the forest, hid himself in caves, or taken refuge in wide desert heats. And he now came to mark my progress and claim the fulfillment of my promise.
I've been.
As I looked on him, his countenance expressed the utmost extent of malice and treachery. I thought with a sensation of madness of my promise of creating another like to him, and trembling with passion toward the pieces of thing on which I was engaged. The wretch saw me destroy the creature on whose future existence he depended for happiness, and with a howl of devilish despair and revenge withdrew.
Okay, so what did Frankenstein do? Why? He was thinking about why he shouldn't do it, but what was it that sort of pushed him over the edge? Let me read it again. I trembled and my heart failed within me when on looking up I saw in the light of the moon the demon at the casement. A ghastly grin wrinkled his lips as he gazed on me, where I sat fulfilling the task which he had allotted to me. So, yeah.
He saw the monster and was scared by him.
Yeah, and what's the right word? Just turned off completely by his appearance, which is that when he first saw his monster, he deserted him. So when he sees him this time, he destroys the creature that he's working on. So.
I left the room and, locking the door, made a solemn vow in my own heart never to resume my labors. And then, with trembling steps, I sought my own apartment. I was alone. None were near me to dissipate the gloom and relieve me from the sickening oppression of the most terrible reveries.
One more.
Several hours passed, and I remained near my window, gazing on the sea. It was almost motionless, for the winds were hushed, and all nature reposed under the eye of the quiet moon. A few fishing vessels alone specked the water, and now and then a gentle breeze wafted the sound of voices. As the fishermen called to one another, I felt the silence, although I was hardly conscious of its extreme profundity, until my ear was suddenly arrested by the paddling of oars near the shore, and the person landed close to my house.
All right, so we've started it for you, read a little bit. You need to read to page 192 for Thursday. I'll be working on your test. I'll be working on your quizzes. And so when we see you on Wednesday, we kind of get in. We will get back to Walden too, but